this is Supervisor Ed Romaine, and you're watching Government at Work on Channel 18.
Good morning. I'm Councilwoman Jane Bonner, representative for the 2nd Council District, and I'm standing here in Mount Sinai Heritage Park with longtime resident of Mount Sinai, Fred Drews, who helped create this park, and so many wonderful programs that are in the Mount Sinai Heritage Trust and the park itself. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, Jane.
Nice
Thank you for inviting me to do this.
Well, you know, we had our walk a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Took our walk in the park and all sorts of wonderful things that are happening here. And I know that you have some wonderful programs planned, and I thought that this is a wonderful opportunity for you to let the residents of Brookhaven know, not just the 2nd Council District, but all the residents of Brookhaven know all the wonderful things that are happening here at the Mount Sinai Heritage Park.
It's always my pleasure to talk about this wonderful park, and thanks for inviting me to do this.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it. And by the way, that walk a couple weeks ago, I only missed one thing: holding your hands as we walked around the park.
Oh, you charmer, you.
But yeah, the next couple of weeks are going to be interesting, and I'm excited about the Veterans Day affair that we're going to be having here at the Heritage Park. The Heritage Trust, a nonprofit organization that I basically volunteer for, and also volunteer for Brookhaven Town.
Yes.
Both are included.
We love our volunteers.
And we are planning something for Veterans Day as one of the days for the Parade of American Flags.
How long have you done the Parade of American Flags?
The first Parade of American Flags was in 2010. So this is the 6th year, and we fly the flags, 107 of them, on 3 days of the year: Memorial Day, July 4th, and Veterans Day. Those are the 3 times. And we do that during the daytime from around 9 o'clock in the morning to 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
And you have a good group of volunteers.
Yes, we have a whole spectrum of volunteers: Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, old folk like myself,
well, it's too much for one
and a bunch
person.
of older adults. So we have the flags. We've gotten down a system that we can put up the flags in about 30 minutes and then take them down in about 45 minutes or so. But depends on the number of volunteers and their experience.
And the flags, as you can see in the camera shot where the people are walking, the flags go all down this avenue, and it is breathtaking to see. It really, really is. It gives you goosebumps.
Yeah. As you look down the path, we call this the Avenue of America, and the furthest person that you might see down that way is how far the flags extend. So there are about 106, 107 flags, and the flags that we fly are local flags. Then there are Old Glory flags and state and territory flags. So they are interspersed, and actually all of the flags are lined up in an order that is historically significant. So for instance, we put the town flags and the county flags first because they in our minds represent the colonial period.
Yes.
And then the Revolutionary War occurred, and we wound up creating a new nation and had 13 original states. And all of those states and all of the territories then are lined up according to the way in which they became part of the nation. So it's a wonderful display, gives a historical account of our growth of our country.
Historically accurate as well.
Right.
Which is really
Right.
nice. I mean, we all just got a nice history lesson right now. You know, a little bit of background for the Heritage Park was,
Okay.
why don't we talk about that, Fred? Because I'm
Okay.
holding this brochure from a recent dinner that was held for the Mount Sinai Civic Association at the Willow Creek Golf and Country Club. The Mount Sinai Civic Association is celebrating their 100th anniversary, and Fred was one of the honored guests at the dinner for having created and been such an integral role of preserving this particular piece of property, which was going to be a Home Depot at one point. Why don't you
Right.
touch upon that for a little bit, Fred?
Yeah, the Mount Sinai Civic Association conducted a Hamlet study, and one of the things in 1995, one of the outgrowths of that was what we would like here in the community, and one of them was a recreational area. And as time went on, what developed, in fact, the volunteers of the Civic Association developed a park proposal. At the same time, Home Depot started to take interest in the property. So we had that wound up now creating a focus, and at that particular point, there was, angst about a
Sure.
box store, and we thought.
Trust me, Fred, wherever they're built, they cause angst.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. But this turned out just like it would, location, location, location. Just like this would probably have been a very successful retail store area. This 17, 18 acres turns out to be a very, very popular park. And it's twofold. It's location, 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 but it's also the walking path and the ingredients of the park bring out the community and people in the community of all ages.
And the creation of it was an interesting three-pronged effort. The volunteers and the Civic,
Yep.
the town of Brookhaven,
Yep.
and we would be remiss if we didn't mention State Senator Ken LaValle,
Yep.
who really took the ball and carried it
Yep.
for this property to be able to be purchased and
Yep.
then the rest be donated.
Yeah, as I recall, Senator LaValle wrote a letter encouraging McGovern sod palm owners, Mr. McGovern, to consider selling the land to the county,
The county at the
which used the Greenway funds, and by the way, those were funds that we as citizens voted and approved to spend on park preservation.
Yep.
But at that particular point, that was a done deal, but then the county did not want to develop a recreational park, and that's where Brookhaven
So the
Town
town
stepped
stepped
in,
in.
which was a very important commitment. And at the same time, the Mount Sinai Civic Association members had formed the Heritage Trust, which then in fact worked with the town
We still
in
do.
planning
Yep.
and developing this wonderful park.
And we do have a great working relationship not only with the Heritage Trust portion, but the other entities that are part of this park. You know, Fred is a wonderful resource, keeps us all in touch with his programs, the events he's running, and landscaping and needs and wants of the park. And it's really one of the premier parks and recreation facilities in the town of Brookhaven, so much so that every resident, no matter where I go in any community, wants one in their community. So why don't you tell us a
I've
little
heard
bit,
that many times.
how did you get it? How did you do it? How can we do it?
Exactly.
Why don't you tell us some other things that you're doing? You talked about the very wonderful parade of flags.
Right. The landscaping that I and other volunteers, master gardeners and other volunteers, and Bob Koch and also other donors have donated various kinds of things to enhance the park. All the trees that are along the Avenue of America here many of them represent states. So this beautiful red maple that's here is in fact the Rhode Island state tree. So, and their New York state tree is a sugar maple. And that symbolization continues on throughout the whole
So
avenue.
there's a method to your madness.
Oh, definitely. People wonder where all of this percolates up, and I must admit I spend a lot of time thinking about the park and how to enhance it. But then again, parks, I've visited hundreds and hundreds of parks around the world in actuality, and I guess I registered a lot of the characteristics of the parks that I've enjoyed, and I've basically said, Jane, why not here?
Sure.
And
why not? And here it is.
And that's why not is here. And for instance, you know, one of the things, here is a mile signpost. How many times as we as tourists have gone around the world and had our picture taken
In front of a signpost.
in front of a mile signpost? But now we label the Avenue of America, but we also point out to different places in the United States itself. You know, I don't care about Tokyo, I don't care about Munich, but I care about the different parts of the United States,
go.
and hopefully that will then sort of alert, create an interest in people in reference to our geography.
Well, everything here, as the numerous times that I've been in this park, you're learning something whether you know it or not, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Well, I'm an advocate of lifelong learning. There's not, and as I think you are too. The most recent addition is this sun here, which is the focal point of our solar system, but it's something that volunteers of the Heritage Trust have created called the Heritage Planet Walk. And so this represents the center of our solar system, and then down along the fence line, and you can see those folks down there, they're volunteers that are helping pick up litter around, which is a common thing, but they'll also be looking at the signs as they progress on down the line. So this Planet Walk is just new in the park, and it's aimed at anybody who's interested in learning a little bit. It's also something that scouts use or families use as they walk around. One of the exciting things for Veterans Day, and I'm looking forward to this, is a colleague of mine from Suffolk Community College who is a volunteer out at the Custer Institute and Observatory in Southold. He's corralled 3 amateur astronomers, and they're coming here on Veterans Day at 2 o'clock, and with their equipment, telescopes and other equipment, to observe the sun, and hopefully it will be out like today. And so we'll look at solar flares, we'll look at solar spots, and so that will be part of Veterans Day program.
Wonderful.
At 2 o'clock.
Wonderful.
So we then started to develop the various landscaping features. But again, the landscaping that I've been involved in, it contains symbolism of either state flowers, state trees, or symbolic representations of something about our nation. So way down in the middle, there are 3 corner, a triangle, and that patriotic triangle, a Boy Scout once asked me, does that 3 sides represent the 3 branches of government? I said, Matthew, no, gee, but I wish I had thought of that.
Right, it could.
But so the next year over the winter time, I said, well, let's formalize that. And so what I wound up arranging for was 3 columns, Corinthian and Ionic, because they are part of the Supreme Court building, the Capitol building, Congressional building, and the White House.
So you're always imparting knowledge, whether people know it or not.
Yeah.
Always learning something.
So it depends on the people coming by, whether it tweaks their interest, and then they will learn something.
Well,
so that's incorporated in all of
and
this.
I know very frequently when I drive to work, I see you bent over, weeding, digging, planting. You know, you can tell Fred by his hat. If you're traveling County Road 83 and you look over, and generally you can tell Fred by his hat and the fact that he's bent over, always doing something. That's very unusual for Fred to be standing here talking.
Well, as is Joan, as is Helen, as is Marty,
He's got wonderful volunteers.
And Carol and Paul.
Your core group.
So yeah. On Veterans Day, we will be assembling the parade of flags, putting out signs. That will take place at 9 o'clock, and they'll fly until 3:30. At 10 o'clock, I'll be giving a tour of the Avenue of America and the flags for scouts, mostly Cub Scouts, but any scout who wants to learn about some of these things. But I will focus on the etiquette of flying the United States flag, the origin and development of the flag, the sequence of stars being added, why that was. So that kind of thing that at 10 o'clock will be a scout tour.
Nice.
And it will then assist the scout and den leaders to provide information for the scouts to earn their badge.
It's a logical stepping off point.
Yeah, yeah. And then at 11:15, I'll be giving another tour to talk about the landscape, about the flags, about all of the representations along the Avenue of America and through the Parade of American Flags. So I'm sure everybody everybody who's watched this program and have received a document possibly from Brookhaven Town, there's the
Letterhead,
seal,
yep, or seal
the
is
letterhead,
everywhere.
there's the seal of Brookhaven Town. But Brookhaven Town begins with the letter B. So the question then gets to be, why in the world is there a D on the Brookhaven Town flag?
And you're going to tell everybody.
On November 11th at 10 o'clock and November 11 at 11:15, that's one of the things that I'll be talking about. So we won't talk about it now, but of course,
No.
if you want to learn about it, what the symbol is and what these other symbols are and why they were historically important, that's one of the things I'll be sharing with the scouts and any adults or anybody else who attends the 10 o'clock tour or 11:15 tour.
And that's the big tease right there. Let's roll this
Well,
out.
it's good to tease.
It's good, absolutely.
Right.
Keep people coming back for more.
Oh, you're doing a good job with
Well,
that,
you
Jane.
know,
Would
I-
you come at 3:30 and help us take
I
in the
was a Girl
flags?
Scout and I'm married to a Coast Guardsman. So,
So that's the kind of thing that I love sharing with other people and with what we've developed here on the Avenue of America and Parade of American Flags. So the sequence for the day is going to be the Parade of American Flags, a 10 o'clock tour for Scouts focus, and then there will 11:15 tour, and then a 2 o'clock observation of the beautiful sun, and people then can go and do the Heritage Park walk. And by the way, Pluto and Neptune don't fit in the park. There are signs way up there at the other end of the park, but those two planets, Dwarf Planet and the other Neptune, are off in the woods north of 25A.
you can also come on Veterans Day to see all of that and the Parade of American Flags, but there's a beautiful playground. There's wonderful fields for your children to play around on, ride bikes. It's really, really a very, very, very busy and popular park, and it really will make you smile to come here if you haven't already done so.
And then if you come in May, speaking of smiles, you'll see the
Yes,
smiley face,
yes,
which
yes,
we added
on the hill.
on the hill. And then I suspect by Veterans Day, the the putting green will be finished.
Yes, they're in
and
the
that's
process
a work
of
in
installing a
progress.
putting green with a water feature.
Yeah.
So, and that's pretty exciting too.
Yeah. So volunteers have been a very big, volunteers of the Heritage Trust or the volunteers that work under the Heritage Trust. There have been scout troops that have put in landscaping, partly the things that I helped design.
It's a popular spot for Eagle Scout projects. It is.
Yep. And so that's all of those wonderful things have been associated with that. So Veterans Day will be something I think I'm looking forward to. Jane is looking forward to.
Yes.
And
The flags get installed at 9.
9 and
And they-
taken down at 3:30. So if you want to come and help at 3:30 to roll up the flags.
Roll them up.
Jane just gave you a lesson. And that will be it for the year in reference to the Parade of American Flags. We're working on it, depends on what happens on the solar observation, but hopefully these 3 volunteers from the Custer Institute, they're now talking about an observatory night where at some point, maybe next spring,
That would be
next
nice.
year, since this is a dark spot, right? Because of no overhead lights relatively near here.
Not a lot of light pollution.
Yeah, yeah. So it might be a good place to set up telescopes and use binoculars to look at planets and whatever else as constellations. And so
For
they're
those
gearing
astronomy
up
buffs.
mentally.
Yes.
And I think that would be a good relationship to develop between the Heritage Trust, Brookhaven Town, the Custer Institute out in South Howard.
I know from my office that we get phone calls from people looking for places to stargaze.
Okay.
So we do know that there are astronomy buffs out there.
right,
So
right.
so
So
Fred, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
This was a really nice time to spend with you and learn about all the different programs here. And Veterans Day is coming on November 11th at 9 o'clock in the morning. The flags go out, and at 3 o'clock. 3:30, they come, they get taken down, and in between, Fred's got some wonderful things that he's prepared to do, and he's a wealth of knowledge and information, as you can all, you'll see it yourselves, and whether you know it or not, you're going to learn a lot, even though it's just a conversation. I never leave a conversation or a visit with Fred that my brain isn't swimming with new information. So,
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much, Fred.
Thank you very much, Jane.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.